No, you're fine.
There you go. That'll work. Everybody ready? Go ahead. Just give everybody a few minutes to make sure everybody's ready to go. All right, good morning. I'm Sheriff Martin with the Blount County Sheriff's Office. I've invited James Chapman, the Chief of Hayden PD, to be with us today. Today, obviously, we are here to discuss the events that happened on December the 7th at approximately 1:20 on the west side of the county, on the West Blount side of Blount County, where we had an officer-involved shooting. On that date, on December the 7th, we received a call, a 911 dispatch received a call wanting a welfare check done on a Miss Rebecca Seals. That caller, when they called, stated that they were told that she was being assaulted or had been assaulted and was being held against her will, and they wanted a welfare check done at 15 Dogwood Lane, and that's a Hayden address. My deputy received the call, and I'm very, very thankful today for Hayden Police Department. They are always very willing to go and back up our deputies and assist on anywhere on the west side of the county. Has nothing to do with jurisdiction. Hayden is always very willing and able to go help our deputies on that side, and so Hayden PD responded as well. My deputy and the Hayden police officer received the call and arrived on the scene at the same time. And when they got there, my deputy and Hayden PD went around to, when we answer calls, whether it be just a simple harassment call to the worst calls, we try to find the path of least resistance, or the door that's most used and most common to a residence. And so my deputy and the officer did that, went to what appeared to be the door that is used the most at this residence, which is the back door. My deputy knocked on the back door and stepped off the porch. It's just 2 steps onto this back porch that's covered. My deputy stepped back and from the inside the house heard, "Who is it?" And Blount County Sheriff's Office, and there was a few moments of my deputy talking through the door or talking through the wall with someone. I've viewed the body cam footage, and you can't make who it is that my deputy is speaking to, but obviously my deputy is communicating with someone inside the house, trying to get a welfare check on Miss Rebecca, and the deputy had asked for that name several times. After several minutes of Hayden PD officer and my deputy communicating through the door or through the wall with this person inside the home, finally the back door opens, and when the back door opens, Rebecca steps out. When Rebecca steps out, it is immediate that Rebecca has wounds to her head and her face, lacerations and swelling, bleeding coming from her head. So it is obvious that the caller that called for a welfare check was justified in calling us, because it was not a hoax, it was real. And it was immediate. It was a real situation involved in. Just seconds after Mr. steps my deputy, who she is, if she's okay, what's going on. Just a second or two later, the suspect steps out behind her, and he has his hands behind his back. My deputy and Hayden PD are trying to communicate with Miss Rebecca, and it was a matter of just a second or two that our offender pulls a handgun out from behind his back and points it at Miss Rebecca and says the words, kill me dead." My deputy and the officer made at least 6, that I counted by viewing the body cam footage, at least 6 attempts, giving him loud verbal commands. Law enforcement is trained to draw their weapon, address the threat, and to try to create a gap between ourselves and the offender. There was an attempt to do that. whenever they were yelling for him to drop it, but he never would drop the weapon. At that point, our officer, my deputy and the Hayden officer had no other choice but to engage the suspect. When they engaged him, the subject dropped to the ground. Initially, he had rolled on his back, but then wound up rolling over on his stomach with his hands and the firearm no longer visible to the officer and to my deputy. What a fantastic job Hayden's officer and my deputy did at securing, making sure that at that point they asked Miss Rebecca to come out from where you are, get out, so that you're no longer in the middle of what's happening. They get her secured and safe. My deputy provides cover for the Hayden officer, who moves up onto the suspect and is able to get the weapon and retrieve it and secure it. Once the weapon was secured, the Hayden officer said, "I'm going to clear the house." He went in, cleared the house. My deputy immediately began first aid. As soon as Hayden's officer cleared the house, he came out and jumped in with both hands, providing first aid as well. It was an amazing example of professionalism and duty that these law enforcement officers displayed that day on the scene, because not only their own life, they saved the life of Miss Rebecca and did everything they can, even after engaging the suspect, to save his life. They provided immediate pressure. My deputy ran to her car, got her first aid kit, brought it out to the scene, and began everything they could with all the training that they had to provide first aid and care for the suspect who was wounded. Before the officer attempted to make contact with our dispatch via radio. Radio communication failed. My deputy felt our officers on the scene that day. They both advised dispatch. Shots had been fired. Suspect was down. Send us medical care, and immediately. You could hear on the body cam footage that I viewed, you could hear them pushing the button, and all you could hear was the busy tone that they get whenever they're not able to get to our dispatch and communicate with them. While the Hayden officer continued to keep his weapon on the suspect, my deputy pulled her cell phone out, called dispatch, and advised them that we need medics. Shots fired, officer down, or not all, shots fired, suspect down. Send us medics, send us supervisors and investigators. So it was an immediate response because of their training, because of a good cool head, a professional demeanor. They were able to communicate back to dispatch what they needed, which was able to get them the help that they needed much quicker. Again, going back to them providing first aid, they did everything they could with direct pressure, did everything they could with clotting bandages to try to get to save this man's life. But by the time the ambulance and medics had gotten on the scene, the suspect was deceased. Our suspect, who his name is Stephen Anthony Bentley, date of birth 12/20 of 1987, was no stranger to law enforcement, and this was an obvious, what we believe this to be a good shoot. We believe that everything that my deputy and the Hayden officer did, based off what I've seen from the body cam, I believe is justified, and I believe that that's what our officers are trained to do, and they did it, and they did it well. Aaliyah is now in charge of the investigation. They have taken over, and we'll have findings that will come out sometime. I'm not sure when, but I am confident that Aaliyah will see it the same way that I do. They will see it to be a good, justified shoot that saved lives and made a difference in our community. Again, I've asked Chief Chapman from Hayden PD to join me today. Chief, if you have any words this time.
The only thing I'd like to add, but And I don't know the eight or 10 mile stretch of interstate, and a lot of people use that corridor for travel, good people and bad people, and we seem to catch a brunt of a mix of a lot of the bad people from all of the other counties passing through and coming there, and people from the western edge of Blount County that are doing illegal acts. So, in light of the way things are nationwide and how they have been going for the last few years, I think there's been a trend, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, where there's been violence towards law enforcement officers, and there's been a lot of fault directed at law enforcement. But I can assure you, the last thing we want to do is be involved in a shooting or hurting anyone. But if that situation arises, we are always going to try to be the ones that go home. So.
Thank you, Chief. That are here today, and they are alive to be able to see about what happened that day. We're thankful for the protection that was provided to them, and just thankful today that able to bring those back to work eventually.
Right.
Those, my deputy and as well as his officer, I'm sure, are on a leave at this time.
Mine just came back.
Just came back. So so his officer just came back to work. I was scheduled to come back on Friday, but I've reached out and told her. Chief Chapman reached out to a support group that was able to come to the scene and to Hayden that day.
Actually, I'd like to brag on them. This peer support group is actually sponsored by the Alabama Chiefs Police Association, and they reached out to me while we were still on the scene of the shooting. I mean, they had a group there within an hour, and they do a fantastic job. They've got a network of people that are involved in this peer support group all over the state of Alabama, and they do an excellent job.
Again, I'm very thankful for, I just want to speak on behalf of my deputy, because I was truly just very thankful for the actions of my deputy, for the way they presented themselves. This deputy is always in a good mood, always happy, always has a smile on their face. You know, and I've just been praying for ever since this sad event happened, that this not be something that steals her joy, or not be something that distracts her or discourages her from being able to do this anymore, because she is absolutely fantastic, and I'd take 20 of her if I could get, because she's only been on patrol less than 2 years, and just very thankful for her. And there are some awards that will be coming from her or for her soon. I don't want to put her name out right now, just because the case is still active, and I want to try to protect her as much as I can. But she is an absolute example of professionalism, and very thankful for her and her hard work and all that she does here for us, the Blount County Sheriff's Office, and for the citizens of Blount County. At this time, I'd be welcome to take any questions.
You said Bentley was no stranger to law enforcement. Can you elaborate on his background?
I don't have a full history on everything that involved him, but we are familiar with him and his address. His actually address that was on his driver's license, a Blount County address, but we have dealt with him a few times recently.
I have some information. Excuse me. What little bit of information I do recall, he was on ankle monitor just up until November. It was taken off. I think it was for maybe a work reason, but he has numerous felony arrests, 2 for attempted murder. So he obviously has exhibited violence in the past. I think most of that occurred in Jefferson County. So this was not his first time being involved in something violent.
Sheriff, was it both the Hayden officer and your deputy that discharged their weapons?
Yes, that's correct. Both law enforcement officers on the scene engaged the subject. I also want to make mention that Miss Rebecca was not harmed during. She was very close to the action that was taking place, but she was not wounded during the altercation. She did not receive any wounds from law enforcement. All of her wounds were received from the decedent, and Rebecca was also treated on the scene and transported to a hospital local because of her injuries that she sustained.
Based on the way you described, I may have missed the detail. The subject, did he indicate that he was suicidal? Like the officers were going to have to kill him?
He did not say. There was no indication other than when he pointed the weapon. Obviously, he said, kill me, Dad." So to me, that seems pretty suicidal to me.
How many shots were fired altogether?
I can't say at this time exactly how many shots were fired. You try to count them while you're watching the body cam footage. All you can hear are the shots. There's no way of being able to know which one was Sheriff's Office, which one was Hayden PD, just by listening to it. I can tell you this, being in firefights myself, you never know exactly how many times you squeeze that trigger. You can count them the best you can, but at some point your audio and visual exclusion kicks in, and it takes a whole lot of training and a whole lot of experience to be able to know exactly how many times you fired in the midst of a firefight. But just in the middle of counting from the body cam footage, there was 6 shots maybe.
More than 5, less than 50.
Speaking of the footage, would you guys be willing to release that?
Eventually, once we talk with Aaliyah and get their, because it's still, like I said, it's still an active investigation that Aaliyah is in charge of. I don't want to do anything to hinder their investigation that might keep them from being able to get all the facts and details. But eventually, I would be willing to do that.
What was the relationship between this woman and the suspect?
I believe he was her nephew.
Correct.
And how severe were her injuries during that day?
So we have, obviously due to HIPAA, we're not able to get the exact answer from the hospital, but just based on the scene, as medics were tending to her, she had severe swelling in her eye and bleeding from her head. There was some, most of what we could see just off of the video appeared to be a lot of head injuries that caused a lot of bleeding and swelling.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I got a couple. You can go ahead if it's related to this. I got a couple of unrelated stories. You got any new info from the doctor from Trussville accused of trying to coerce a teen to a days in?
I do not.
And what about anything new from the hot car death of a 2-year-old that happened in September?
No new information at this time on those.
When both the deputy and the officer were placed on leave, were they paid during that time?
Yes, they are on paid leave. We again, I just want to reiterate that based off of what I observed and what I saw through the body cam videos, I 100% believe this to be justified and believe that Aaliyah will find that as well. Any more questions? I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Thank you for being here. Again, I want to apologize to the Blount County and for this being on the day that you actually do your release. This is the day your paper releases, so I apologize we couldn't, but this really was the quickest that we could get to this. I am thankful for all of you who are here today. Your attendance is noted, and those who are absent is noted as well. If there's nothing else, thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
Good job.